Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
So today is game one of the 2026 NBA Finals between the San Antonio Spurs and the New York Knicks. And the parallels and synchronicities between this finals and the NBA Finals 27 years ago is so weird and so mind-blowing. It's very hard to believe that this stuff is not scripted. And we're going to go through all the because at some point it stops being a coincidence and people just start to question, like, are they making these things happen like this on purpose or what? Not to mention that these two teams played against each other in the NBA Cup earlier this season. For those of you that don't know, the NBA Cup is this new addition that's been happening the past few years of this mid-season tournament that takes place. And within this tournament, the Spurs end up playing against the Knicks. And I believe that the Knicks won. Now, I do want to state for the record that Wemby was playing limited minutes. He was averaging like 25 minutes. But let's get into all the weird things that you should probably know ahead of this game one. So back in 1999, the San Antonio Spurs played against the New York Knicks, but more importantly, the Spurs were hosting the Knicks just like they are this year. That is to say, the Spurs had the better record, and game one was taking place in San Antonio in 1999, just like they're doing this year as well. So that is to say, this is the first finals rematch between these two franchises in 27 years. And that number 27 is going to come up here in just a little bit later in the video. In 1999, the league was witnessing the rise of the one and only Tim Duncan, who was a slim two-way big man for the Spurs. Here we are in 2026, and we have Victor Wembanyama, a slim two-way big man for the Spurs, seen as the closest Duncan level franchise cornerstone in basketball since the Big Fundamental, which is the nickname for Tim Duncan. So once again, here we are in the finals, centered around a young Spurs big man versus New York. But let's get even deeper. Both Tim Duncan and Victor Wembanyama was drafted number one overall. Both of them wear jersey numbers ending with the number one. Duncan was in his second year when he was featured in the finals for the first time, and here Wemby is currently in his third year. But none of that even matters. You know why? Because they were both 22 years old. Tim Duncan, when he won his first championship, was 22 years old. Wemby currently is 22 years old. That's wild. Here's something else to blow your mind. The route that Tim Duncan and the Spurs took to win the championship against the Knicks was the first round they played against the Blazers, the second round they played against the Wolves, and then they played against the Lakers with Tim Duncan's at the time rival, Shaquille O'Neal, which Tim Duncan went on to beat him. Well, would you look at that? Victor Wembanyama, first round they played against the Trailblazers. The second round they played against the Wolves. The third round they played against the Thunder, which had Victor Wembanyama's nemesis, Chet Holmgren, but also someone that he felt he should have won MVP over, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is wild. And I want to state for the record that it's very likely that Wemby could have been in the finals last year. We don't know, of course, but it's important to note that Wemby has been dealing with injuries like the lower calf strain, and he also dealt with the blood clot situation that caused him to miss a lot of games. So that is to say, if this is to be believed as a script, it was probably written for Victor Wembanyama to be in the finals last year, but he was dealing with injuries. I want to state that for the record. And of course, as many of us basketball fans know, after Duncan would actually go on to win the title in 1999, that was the first of 5 championships. And many people believe that Victor Wembanyama, or the Victor Wembanyama era, has officially started with his supporting cast in a new Spurs dynasty. But let's keep going. Dylan Harper is the rookie backup shooting guard for the Spurs. His father is a man by the name of Ron Harper, who actually played against Tim Duncan in the NBA for years and also won 5 championships just like Tim Duncan. It's also important to note that Ron Harper played with Michael Jordan, who most people revere as the greatest basketball player of all time. He played with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and he also played with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Dylan Harper has directly learned from Tim Duncan, who is still heavily involved with the Spurs organization. There's also something to be said about the Spurs' blueprint or style of drafting, and the skill sets of their players are remarkably similar. Tony Parker was the elite speed, constant rim pressure, deadly floater, and the engine of the offense. De'Aaron Fox literally fits that prototype, as he was once the fastest player in the entire NBA and is still one of the fastest today. He has a great floater game and provides constant rim pressure as well. And his game is uniquely different from the other guards. Both Tony Parker and De'Aaron Fox's greatest strength is getting to the paint before the defense can react. But this is where it gets even stranger because the early 2000 Spurs had a star level player that chose to come off the bench named Manu Ginobili. He was left handed, creative, unpredictable, could score, facilitate, and could help run the offense when the starting unit was on the bench and even sometimes with the starting unit. Well, the same applies to the San Antonio Spurs, Dylan Harper, who is also left handed, a crafty scorer, advanced playmaker, and can play on and off the ball just like Manu Ginobili. And what makes it even more interesting is that it's almost as if they needed Dylan Harper to play the left-handed role because he isn't even a natural left-hander. He shoots left-handed simply because he wanted to be quote unquote different and it looks smoother.
How come you're lefty?
I want to be different.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know.
Your dad said one day that you just decided to be a lefty. True or false?
That's probably true. I don't remember how it happened. I dunk with my right hand. I do everything righty. I hit a golf ball with my right hand, but I shoot left.
Can you name all the lefties on the Spurs?
Me, David Jones, Fox. There's more.
There's one that I have in mind.
Me, David Jones, Fox. We count Mason Plumlee? Mace.
He's a lefty.
He a lefty, right? It depends on the day.
What do you like about being lefty? Any advantages?
A lot smoother. I feel like when you go back watching the game, I feel like I look a lot smoother out there.
Something else very interesting is that Wemby was drafted number 1, Harper was drafted number 2, Fox was drafted number 4, and Castle was drafted number 5. And those are literally the jersey numbers that they wear as well. Not to mention that both Ginobili and Dylan Harper have jersey numbers that start with number 2, just like Tim Duncan and Victor Wembanyama have jersey numbers that end with the number 1. Again, not a perfect match, but it's something that fans definitely will notice. But it gets even more interesting because in 1999, a man named Rick Brunson was on the Knicks roster when they played against the Spurs in the finals. Well, here we are in 2026, and there's a man by the name of Jalen Brunson, who is currently the Knicks superstar and finals leader. And you would be correct. Rick Brunson happens to be Jalen Brunson's father, as they became the first father-son duo in NBA history to each reach the finals with the same franchise, not to mention that Rick is now a Knicks assistant coach. Another interesting fact is that Rick Brunson started off his career as a reserve point guard and briefly played in the finals as a role player against the Spurs before going on to lose to the Spurs in those same finals. Well, Jalen Brunson started off his career playing behind Luka Doncic and being heavily underestimated before becoming a star in his own right. I mean, it's almost like a movie script. The father was on the last Knicks finals team. The son leads the Knicks back to the finals 27 years later. Rick Brunson literally watched Tim Duncan start a dynasty in 1999. 27 years later, Rick now stands on the Knicks bench while his son tries to stop Victor Wembanyama from starting the next one. To make it even more strange, Jalen Brunson was literally there as a toddler during the 1999 finals run, but he didn't just attend the games, he was also in the locker room. So in 1999, New York was trying to win its first title since 1973. Here we are in 2026, and New York is still trying to win its first title since 1973. And then, of course, you have the 27 Club, right, which is this conspiracy or this pattern over the years that people have noticed of celebrities that have passed away at the young age of 27. From Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Robert Johnson, and the list goes on. And for years, people have been trying to figure out if there's something special about this 27 number. Because in the occult, as we know, 27 is very important when it comes to spiritual completion and ending a cycle. So being that I've noticed that these teams are playing each other for the first time in a while in the finals, is it a coincidence that they're playing each other for the first time in 27 years? And all the similarities of the players and the roles that they play in this finals is so strikingly similar that it's kind of hard to overlook. Have you all noticed this? Because this is the last thing I want to say before this video ends. Media will do their job in getting ahead of the narrative before people start to notice so that they can make it seem like it's not that big of a deal. And it is just that a coincidence, right? You have Reggie Miller and Jamal Crawford and these different people who will mention some of the similarities between Victor and Tim Duncan, some of the similarities between the teams that are matching up for the first time in X amount of years to almost discourage you from being suspicious that all of this stuff is scripted years in advance. Allegedly. Y'all in the comment section, even if you don't watch sports, what are your thoughts about this? Because it's not just basketball. We've covered sports several times. I have a video called The Open Secret About Sports. I believe a lot of it is predictive programming. I don't think it's hard for many people to believe that because there are many different facets facets and ways that they can control how a season goes, how a game turns out, how many points a player has, et cetera, from timeouts to referees to injuries, whether they're real or they're not actual injuries, substitutions in the games, play calling, defensive matchups. They have ways that they can help dictate it. And I've mentioned this before, but the turning point of the Spurs and Thunder series was the game, I believe it was game 3, where Victor Wembanyama scored 33 points where they would come back and beat the Thunder. Well, would you like to guess how many points Tim Duncan scored in game 1 of the finals against the Knicks? 33 points. You will be correct. And if you can believe that the Spurs Thunder series was probably rigged to go 7 games from the beginning, there's a very good chance that they're going to try to push this series as long as they can as well, because that's more revenue, better ratings, more drama and controversy, which is always good for the league. Hop in the comment section, give me your thoughts on what you think about this. I'm Demetrius. I go by DD. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.